the Dogs' deed is done.
What can I say? They were the best. They really stood out. They put it all together when it counts, and that's what the sport's all about.
What a routine.
And that just may do it for Georgia here tonight.
Wow.
The Jim Dog Show is brought to you by Melwood Springs. Melwood Springs from the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Georgia.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Yocklin, and welcome to the 2009 Jim Dog Show. With me tonight is Associate Head Coach Jay Clark, soon to be our head coach next season. And we are going to take a look back at the opening competition for the Jim Dogs this past Friday against West Virginia. West Virginia was ranked 23rd in the country coming into the competition against the Jim Dogs. We were ranked number 1. Just in general, Jay, what are your comments on the opening meet?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, we started with a little slower than what we would like to do this time of the year, but we've had a lot of little nagging injuries. We've never really, all fall, we had a lot of trouble getting any kind of momentum going with our training. That, coupled with the recovery time for Courtney Kupets coming off an Achilles injury and Tiffany Tolnay and her injuries and off-season surgeries, we just really had a tough time getting going, and we felt like going into this meet that we might be 2 or 3 weeks behind in terms of our preparation. Now, with that said, we end up making some mistakes that we really didn't anticipate, but really not the kind of performance that we look for, and we certainly expect a lot of improvement almost immediately as we head towards LSU next week.
And as we've already alluded to, this opening competition is a little bit of a slow start for us, so we have a long way to go. But again, we want to thank all of you for your support, and I just want to take a minute to say, as you know, this is my final season, and I'm just so excited and so confident in Jay and his wife Julie to be able to take over the Jim Dogs and keep our team at this level of dominance that we've been, so appreciative to and enjoyed so much the last number of years. So with that said, I guess it's time to take a look at the first 2 rotations, vaulting and in the uneven bars, to see, you can see how the Jim Dogs started their season this past weekend against West Virginia.
Well, we're coming out for the first meet of the season. This is always a great experience for the freshmen in particular, and you can see the freshmen coming out and their first experience in front of a sold-out Stegman Coliseum. Hillary Morrow, a sophomore, getting us started on vault. You can see she pikes that down just a little bit, and not an awful lot of distance, but you got to understand, Hillary's 4'8", and so a vault that is very big for her body will not always look as big compared to the other vaults. But she does a good job on the landing. The body position was a little bit weak, but she gets us off to a nice solid start with a 9.8. Lauren Sessler, a junior out of Lawrenceville, Yurchenko half front pike. Pretty solid vault. She does bend her knees right at the end prior to landing the vault, but Lauren's really become a big contributor for us on vault, competing at the national championships last year for us in the leadoff spot. Had a little step back there, not quite the amplitude and the rise off the table you'd like to see, but she does get a 9.8 for us. Megan Morris over on bars for West Virginia. There's a backup rise to it. That's called a slip grip backup rise. It's also known as the Galloway, which is named after former Jim Dog Stacy Galloway. She has a pack salto there. Very clean so far. Not too much to take at this point. A little short on that backup rise to handstand. A giant full to a toe front with a half. Lands the dismount very cleanly and goes 9.85 for West Virginia. Nice score for them. Cassidy McComb over on vault. And you'll see she's only doing the Yurchenko full right now. We're just trying to get her consistent. The 1.5 will be added back at a later date. But Cassidy struggled a little bit in the fall, getting her consistency and everything going again. You can see it's a very nice vault that she does there. A little bit piked down at the very end and the hop on the landing, but she gets a 9.875, and that's a great vault for her to start the season. Tiffany Tolnay, another one that will be doing a 1.5 here very, very shortly. As you all well know or probably remember, she's been doing the 1.5 for several years for us. Her full is not as good as her 1.5, but it's still a very big vault, and there is, again, a pike through in the hips you can see at the end of that full twist, and a landing deduction as well, 9.875. And then the biggest vault of the night from Marcia, who's been a 2-time All-American on the event, just couldn't land it. It was a big vault off the table, Yurchenko half front in a laid-out position. And you can see she gets great amplitude and rise off the table, as she typically does. And just takes that big step there at the end and goes 9.825. So a little bit less than what we've grown accustomed to from her. So we start out with a 49.175 to a 48.475 for West Virginia. Gina Nuccio, after the first 2 falls on bars, as a freshman, is put in a very difficult position, and she has a sprained ankle, so we weren't able to do her normal mount. She does a giant full to a very nice giggle. You see the legs come apart there. We're working very hard on eliminating that. She does usually eliminate it, but in a pressure situation like this, she sort of reverted back to some bad habits. Very nice half in, half out dismount. Lands it very cleanly. A little short on both handstands. It goes 9.775 with a sprained ankle. Amy Bieski on vault for West Virginia. Yurchenko layout, half front is probably what they're calling that. It was more like a layout with a late half twist, but she goes 9.85, and they're worth the same, so it doesn't really matter. Marcia Newby has really done a great job for us all fall on the uneven bars. She has a new dismount coming up. You saw the Shaposhnikova to overshoot. This is a staller. You see the elbows bend there. We're trying to work that out. To Tkachev. And then she's getting ready for a new dismount for her this year that she just learned. It's a double layout. And does a very good job with it. Marcia is about 5'7", so to do a double layout is a no easy task, and she does a great job with it. Tiffany Tolnay up on bars. And remember, at this point, we've already had 2 falls and are counting 1, so the trick is we don't want to count another one. And the seniors coming in here at the end of the lineup do a great job for us, making sure that we kind of steady the ship. And Tiffany does her trademark clean routine. She goes vertical on all handstands, a little bit short on that last one, perhaps. And a nice double front dismount there. Almost sticks it. Little shift there, 9.9, but a very, very good routine. Chelsea Tabor on vault. Very nice Yurchenko full. You see the late twist on that. She really gets up off the table before she twists. Excellent technique for her for West Virginia. Courtney Kupet's back over on bars for us. This routine is back to the routine that she did as a freshman. We sort of simplified things for her to get her going again after the Achilles because we had a very limited amount of time in order to prepare, but it's still packed, as you can see, with 4 major releases and then a big dismount here. She was a little short on that last handstand, but a very good dismount, lands it very cleanly, and goes 9.975, an excellent routine for her to get started her season off with this year. So after 2 rotations, we're up 98.025 to 97.3, and that's a pretty healthy lead.
The Gym Dog Show is brought to you by Melwood Springs. Melwood Springs from the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Georgia. By GeorgiaDogs.com. GeorgiaDogs.com, the official website of the Georgia Bulldogs. By Brown Arrowhead Clinic. Arrowhead Clinic, Georgia's largest spinal health care organization. By Athens Regional Medical Center. At Athens Regional, we have a specialty. You. By Alpha Factor. Alpha Factor, the official gymnastics apparel worn by the Gym Dogs. By the Georgia Club. The Georgia Club, a community of neighborhoods in Bulldog Country. By Phil Hughes Honda. Phil Hughes, the official Honda of the Georgia Gym Dogs. And brought to you by John Bull's stores in the Bahamas. John Bull, the shopping mecca of the Caribbean.
Ask Suzanne, brought to you by GeorgiaDogs.com. And this week's question is, when will Courtney McCool be back in competition? And the answer, we're not totally sure. She's still on crutches, but will come off of her crutches on January 20th. We're hoping to get her back up on the balance beam right away, and she'll be competing bars as soon as possible. That's Ask Suzanne, brought to you by GeorgiaDogs.com.
Welcome back. Well, after a pretty good start on vault, where we were a little shaky on landings, but overall, that's about where you expect to be on vault this time of the year. Just not quite where we want to be with landings, but overall the amplitude was very good on vault, and I think we were pretty pleased with how we started on vault. Then we go to bars, and we have the 2 mistakes right away with a freshman, Kat Ding, who's in the leadoff spot, which is a tough role for a freshman. She struggled in warm-ups and was not able to do a very good job in the routine. And then following her, a senior, Abby Stack, which you don't anticipate happening. So we got off to a really rough start, and the pressure was really on as we got through that lineup, with the third person being another freshman, Gina Nuccio, who sort of righted the ship. So we finish out pretty strong on bars, but those 2 mistakes in the beginning ended up having to cost us. And in the end, we score a 48.85.
So now we're headed to balance beam, and even though we have all upperclassmen in the lineup, first up, senior Paige Burns has never competed beam for us. And second up on the balance beam, Cassidy McComb, a sophomore, never competed beam last year as a freshman. So it's almost like having 2 freshmen on this apparatus. Let's see what happens over during the beam rotation.
You see, the fans are very much into the first meet of the season. We've got the The Gym Dog Crazies over there making their presence known, and Hillary Morrow gets us started on balance beam. And this routine winds up tying her personal best on the balance beam. She did balance beam for us a good portion of last year. Flip-flop layout there for her series. Then she comes back and has a front aerial to a straddle jump. That's a D to a C that's a combination bonus. Front tuck right there. There's no one in the country that does it any better than that. You can see she gets full extension as she lands. There's a switch side combination there. A round off double full. Just the step there on the landing, and she goes 9.85, and as I said, tied her personal best to this point. Tiffany Tolnay, the senior, back up on the balance beam, and Tiffany's numbers have been limited all fall just due to nagging foot things that have been bothering her. She had a shoulder procedure done over the summer that took her a while to get going, but we think she's about a week or two away from really hitting her strides. Weak switch leap there. She does connect the thing, but you don't know how much they took there on the switch leap. Punch front, very nicely done. And then she finishes with a gainer full off the side, which she hops just a little bit on. Tiffany's done double backs her entire career off beam, but as a result of the injuries from last year, we've had to kind of scale that back and just try to go clean for her to get started with this season. Next up, Amy Bieski on floor for WVU. Open with a double tuck and then does a front full front layout there in the middle. Fairly stock in terms of composition, but certainly enough difficulty as she finishes with another D and a 2.5 there at the end and goes 9.825, a very good routine for her. Grace Taylor got back in the beam barely. She pulled a muscle about a week ago, and we weren't sure what we were going to get out of Grace, if anything. And as you know, she's the current national beam champion, but really has not been able to put any numbers in the last couple of weeks, and we were very pleased to see her handle it the way she did. Front aerial there, slight little balance check, and she gets ready to dismount, and the dismount is typically the only thing that gives her a little bit of trouble, and as you can see, she gets a little bit offline there. She's over to the side of the mat there and goes 9.825. A solid routine, but certainly not one that is up to snuff in terms of Grace's potential. Megan Morris over on floor for West Virginia. Nice double pike to open. She comes back with a 2.5 twist in the middle. She is their top all-arounder at the current point in time. Front full at the end. She tucks her knees. You could probably take insufficient body position on that because you don't really know whether it was intended to be laid out or tucked. But she did go 9.85. Back over on balance beam, Courtney Kupets for us. Just good to see her back out there in front of the fans and kind of getting her feet wet. You know, it's human nature to be a little bit gun shy after coming off some sort of an injury that is as catastrophic as a ruptured Achilles. But she's doing a great job, with the exception of a little trouble that she had on vault with her landing earlier. It just wasn't a great landing. Again, we watered her down, took the double back out just to kind of get her going again, and she does a great job, goes 9.85. So after 3 rotations, we have a 146.8 to a 145.95, headed into the final event with a comfortable lead, yet still underperforming as a team.
Hi, my name is Annie. Cassie, what is your favorite TV show?
Thanks for the question, Annie. My favorite show is actually Full House. I've been watching it since I was 5 years old, and I actually have all season DVDs of it.
I'm Marty Anderson, and I want to tell you who my favorite gym dog is, and that's Tiffany Tolnay. She's a wonderful person, and this year she's going to be a senior. I'm hoping this year that she'll finally get that perfect 10, and I'm really proud to say that she's my favorite gym dog.
Welcome back. Well, now here we are after 3 rotations, and we're a point up on West Virginia, which is a pretty comfortable lead for sure going into floor exercise. We haven't had a great competition. We've had, 2 falls off balance beam as well as the 2 falls on uneven bars, so we're down a point really just with falls alone. We're headed over to floor exercise. We have an opportunity to salvage a good team score. If we can hit these routines, we can still go 196. We're not exactly sure what we're going to get on floor exercise. This is most of the time the most difficult event for any team in the country to put together at the beginning of the season. So we do know that. We've watered down some routines. We feel like these are routines they can hit, and we're still hoping for that 196, but we're definitely not confident that we're going to have it. So going into this last rotation, headed to floor. We're going to be starting with Marcia Newby. Let's see what happens.
Marcia Newby has had to step back in on floor, who's not done much floor in her career here at Georgia. Opens with a very nice double pike. Whip, immediate double full here in the middle. You see the legs separate, but again, she's had virtually no practice. The fans really liked this routine, though, and got into it. And then we had to water her down and do a plain double full at the end of the routine, so she has a 9.9 start value. And with a few of the mistakes execution-wise that were in the routine, she ends up getting a 9.6, but in lieu of the fact she's done very little and just had to kind of step in an emergency notice because we don't have a lot of depth there right now, it was a good start. Abby Stack opens with a triple full. Very nicely done. And the fans really love this routine, too. It's to Speed Racer, the theme from Speed Racer, the movie. And you can see that Abby really kind of gets into the character of the movie as she goes through the routine. She's coming back here for her middle pass, which is a double full to punch front. She kind of goes into a kneeling pose. It's just a very unique combination there. She gets ready for her last pass. You see the fans with the checkered flags in their hands as she's coming to the finish line to Chariots of Fire music there. Gets ready for the double pike last pass, which is a difficult thing to do, especially early in the season. She dumps it a little bit. The round-off back handspring got a little high on her, but she's able to pull it around and does a nice job for us. And got a 9.9. Great score for this early in the season. Cassidy McComb up next, and this is our Vegas showgirl, and it's probably the most popular routine within the team in terms of what routine they like to watch the most. And Cassidy gets off to a great start with a double pike. She is doing a full end now that we probably will plug in once we know we have a little more depth on floor. We don't want to risk doing anything crazy too early. That 2.5 will move to the last pass as soon as she can add the punch front. And right now we're doing this front full front at the end, which will turn into, like I said, the 2.5 punch front, and the double pike will move to the middle when the full end gets in there. So we've got some upgrades with Cassidy in particular that should appear as we get further into the season, but this was a nice starting point for her, and she goes 9.85. Courtney Kupets. This is a great routine here. It's a very unique piece of music, one of the best works of choreography that I've seen with her since she came to Georgia. And here it is right here. Get over the hump, do the Arabian double that cost you your season last year, and you could almost just feel the weight of the world come off her shoulders right there. You see she's smiling and gets into the routine, and you just know that in the back of her mind it was getting over that hurdle that really was important to her, and being able to perform that and put it back out there. And I know that you could almost feel it in the crowd too. The fans really cheered when she landed that first pass, because it was a deathly quiet scene last year when she got injured. Comes back in the middle here with the whip half front Rudy. Misses the punch a little bit on the Shushinova, a little bit more amplitude you'd like to see on that. But again, just glad to have her back out there executing the way that she is. Really not a major deduction, anything yet that you could really take. And then she's about to finish up with her last pass, which will be a double pike. You can see even the coaches, we're lightening up a little bit because it's nice to see us come back. We had 2 falls on this event too. And to have these guys come back and finish the way they did, that was certainly a positive note. And you can see Courtney with a little flare there at the end. She finishes the routine, and just really glad to kind of get back out there, and get that monkey off her back, as we said. So we finished with a 195.425 to West Virginia's 194.075. A disappointing start, but a start nonetheless, and we most assuredly will be improving here in the next couple of weeks.
Routine of the Week, brought to you by Athens Regional Medical Center, and this week's routine is Courtney Kupets on the floor exercise as she comes back to the event that she was injured on last year for her first performance of the year, scoring a 9.95. That's Routine of the Week, brought to you by Athens Regional Medical Center.
Countdown to the NC2As, brought to you by Melwood Springs, and this week the rankings are based solely on the first score of the season. Being number 1 this week will be Florida. Utah is in the 2nd place position. Georgia is in 8th, and the top 10 is rounded out by Missouri. And that's Countdown to the NC2As, brought to you by Melwood Springs. Well, there you have it. A pretty good performance on floor, although we really had an opportunity, as Suzanne mentioned, to try and still salvage a great score. We had 2 falls, but the highlights of that event were Abby Stack and the return of Courtney Kupets back to the scene of the crime, if you will, where the last time she was on that floor was not a very good situation for her, where she ruptured her Achilles. But just to get that monkey off her back, I think was a great feeling for her, to kind of breathe a sigh of fresh air, finally knowing that she's kind of overcome that hurdle and gotten back out there. So, Suzanne, we head to LSU, going on the road on Friday for a double weekend where we come home and have Utah on Monday. Talk to us a little about what the expectations are now.
Well, LSU opened their season with a 194 in Cancun, and then last week they had a 195, just a little bit lower than us. So they have not scored higher than us yet this season. As I said before, I think that we're probably pretty even teams right now at this point. So that's certainly a competition that we feel like if we stay focused, that we should be able to come home with a win. And then, of course, 2 days later, Utah, January 19th, one of the top teams in the country right now, will be here. We'll be hosting that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Martin Luther King Monday. It's a pink out, so wear your pink. And, by the way, new this year, the dog walk, the gym dog walk, actually 2 hours before every competition. So at 2 o'clock on Monday, you can come into the Coliseum and greet and meet the team as they come into the arena for warm-ups. That will begin at 2 o'clock, but you got to wear pink. We will see you next week with the results from the LSU competition and the home meet against the Utah Utes.
The Jim Dog Show has been brought to you by Melwood Springs. Melwood Springs from the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Georgia. By GeorgiaDogs.com. GeorgiaDogs.com, the official website of the Georgia Bulldogs. By Brown Arrowhead Clinic. Arrowhead Clinic, Georgia's largest spinal health care organization. By Athens Regional Medical Center. At Athens Regional, we have a specialty. You. By Alpha Factor. Alpha Factor, the official gymnastics apparel worn by the Gym Dogs. By the Georgia Club. The Georgia Club, a community of neighborhoods in Bulldog Country. By Phil Hughes Honda. Phil Hughes, the official Honda of the Georgia Gym Dogs. And brought to you by John Bull's stores in the Bahamas. John Bull, the shopping mecca of the Caribbean.